Hey, welcome back to the show. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Nadia Fiorita is a South Florida-based licensed clinical therapist with a modern and authentic approach. She's been in the field for over a decade and specializes in working with busy women and adolescent girls who struggle with high-functioning anxiety and are looking to gain control over feelings of anxiousness, self-doubt, and perfectionism. She brings a rich background that includes holistic certifications in addition to her clinical license and is trained in diverse modalities such as CBT, DBT, and trauma-focused approaches. She has a passion for bringing a personalized approach to each and every client she works with. She lives in Miami with her husband and 3 stepchildren and loves to travel and stay active. Welcome, Nadia.
Hi, Claudia. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited that you launched a podcast, by the way.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's been a lot of work, but I enjoy it. It's fun.
Well, yes, and I was actually looking at some of your episodes, and I have to dive into some of them. They
Yeah.
look very, very good.
Thank you. So let's talk about anxiety because I do have an episode about anxiety, and I'm sure I'll have others because it's very prevalent in women in their perimenopausal years. But I know you specialize in high functioning anxiety. So can you tell us a little bit of what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So high functioning anxiety is not a formal clinical diagnosis. It's more of a term to describe symptoms and symptomology that includes or can include perfectionism, people-pleasing behaviors, overthinking, chronic worry, self-doubt, low confidence. And I think the key thing about high-functioning anxiety is that it often happens in men and women. I mean, it's both. I have, men come into my DMs like, I feel like you're describing me too. And I'm like, this can absolutely be something that men can, live with and experience, of course. But it's usually in someone that is on the outside appears very successful, confident, outgoing, looks to have it all together, but then on on the inside, in terms of what's happening internally, they're really, really struggling and suffering and feeling a lot of different things and in their thoughts and doubting themselves, and they struggle with indecision. There's a lot of these, kind of things that they describe and experience. But again, it's not a formal clinical diagnosis. It's just something that a lot of people experience, and I think is very common today because everyone is so busy.
Yes. I used to think being busy was a good thing. And as I am changing in my 40s and as things are shifting for me, I'm definitely self-reflecting on that, what busyness means. And I almost feel like it's an addiction.
I would agree with you. Absolutely. I think it's become an addiction, and I think I was actually listening to a training, and the gentleman that was teaching on it kind of called it an illness, a disease. And we're just overcommitted, we're doing so much. And I think in society it just becomes so glorified, right? Like you're busy, you're productive, you're striving, you're achieving, and there's a lot of praise for it.
Yeah, it's funny. Recently, I was thinking of that. Like, again, I'm always self-reflecting on things like how I run my business, how I live my life, how I maintain relationships, and wanting to do so much, but also realizing like my body can only handle so much. And I was thinking about just social media, and you and I chatted a little bit prior to hopping on, just about even maintaining a business on social media and how time consuming and it can be, and how much energy has to go towards it. And I remember like at one point I would put like this list of things that I was doing and I would share it with the people in my community. And then that became almost like a trend where people would put this long list of all the things they're doing on a daily basis. I started to think like, holy shit, that's a lot. And then when I started doing it, I was like, is this benefiting me? Like, why does me telling these women like all the things I'm doing, is that helpful to them? And it just kind of plays into that, right? It's like we have to have this to-do list and we have to check things off the list. And it almost, we think it makes us feel good, but really, what is it doing to us?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're calling me out a little bit because I do that too on social media. I think with running businesses too, there's a conflict, right? Because you want to run your business and yet you think about what you're actually trying to promote and model
Yep.
for the women that you serve and have an impact on. But yes, I think the to-do list can be a negative thing. And I think we try way too hard to put too many things on the to-do list for sure. And it just perpetuates this stress and anxiety. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point now every Sunday because I'm so used to like writing something and I'll just plop it on whatever day in the calendar. Like if it's a project or something that I want to get done like before the end of the month. And then like on Sundays or even Monday mornings, I will sit and look at my week. And if there's any day that there's more than 4 major tasks, I
Mhm.
get rid of it. I move it around because I used to be so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, like, nobody ever diagnosed me with anxiety, but learning from you and, some other people who talk about it, I'm like, oh my God, like, I think I have this,
Yeah.
right? Especially, and this resonates. That's why I wanted to have you on, because I think a lot of women don't realize that the people pleasing, these long to-do lists, the self-doubt, the indecisiveness is a form of anxiety.
Really being mindful about what your schedule looks like and how much time and energy you are dedicating to certain things each and every day. And when you think about what's on your schedule, how does it make you feel?
Mm.
Right? I think like if people, women in particular, kind of took a look at, what they had going on, they'd be like, oh my God, this is totally making me feel overwhelmed. It's not sitting well in my body. Like, so I think that's really important. And it sounds like that's a thing that you do, which is amazing.
Yeah, it took me a while to get here because I would often feel inadequate or not doing enough when I would take things off my plate. I had another guest on earlier who's also a therapist, actually, and we talked about the guilt that comes with not doing enough. So, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in that season of my life right now, and it's interesting because I mean, I can relate to that just so much. I think, with my audience, I've had a few very specific reels go viral, and just with that comes so much pressure. You feel pressure to create, you feel pressure to produce, you feel pressure to show up. And when you're not doing that, you all this, I think, like this inner dialogue around not feeling good enough or not doing enough comes up. It's not actually guilt because you're not necessarily doing anything wrong. I think it speaks more to shame, which is like unworthiness
Mhm.
and not feeling good enough. So it's like this, it's kind of like a double whammy of like not feeling good enough, but also fear,
Yeah.
right? Of what people will think, how will you be perceived? And I think that's kind of how anxiety has manifested today. It has a lot less to do with us really trying to survive,
Mhm.
but more around how things will impact our self-image. So you have
Oh,
to
yeah.
be really, really grounded and secure in who you are and the choices that you're making and why you're making certain choices. And I'll kind of bring it back to what I was saying before. I've had to really kind of think about my life and my business this year, and I've been showing up less on social media. I put
Mhm.
my course on pause because I just felt like I was in this place of um doing the things that were fueling my anxiety, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like,
Mhm.
I'm doing the things that I tell my clients not to do and teach my clients not to do. So I've really had to rest and say no to more things and recharge and get back to like nourishing yourself. And I think you have to feel very, again, like secure
Mhm.
in taking care of yourself and making those decisions and caring less about what people think about it.
Yeah, which I feel like that comes with age. I know that like again in
Yeah.
my 40s now, I am more confident in making different choices than years ago. Like even when I started the business, like what I should be doing, even in regards to how do you market yourself, and like you say, showing up on social media. Just because other people are doing things a certain way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. Especially if doesn't feel good in your body and it is causing you distress.
Mhm.
Um, Why do you think women struggle so much with self-doubt? And is it worse nowadays?
I think there's a variety of things that contribute to self-doubt. And I think it can, sometimes it stems from what's happened in your childhood,
Mhm.
right? Like it could be from unresolved trauma. It can be from emotionally unavailable parents. It could be from highly critical parents. It could be, and we're not blaming the parents. This is not about blaming your childhood or your parents, but that can be a reason. I think it's also one of the things that contributes to it is social media too now. Like I think we're just totally in constant comparison of one another, and it makes us feel less than, it makes us feel discouraged, it makes us feel like we're not doing enough, it makes us feel like our lives aren't good enough. I mean, it's I think the social media makes it so much worse today. If you're in a place where you're jam packing your schedule, you're overcommitting, you're doing things because you think you should be doing them or you're supposed to be doing them for whatever reason, whether that was a message you got from parents, whether it's the message you get from society, whether it's the message you get from community, you don't take the time to reflect with yourself on how you're actually feeling, on how you actually, the things that you actually want to do, what you should be prioritizing in this season of your life, how you want to be feeling, how you could be nourishing your mind and your body. And I think we just lose the ability to know ourselves and to also trust how we feel and what we actually want. And I think it just becomes a cycle of indecision, self-doubt, low confidence, and the list goes on. Emotion dysregulation, nervous system dysregulation, all of the things.
Yeah,
I
I
think
definitely paused this summer. I needed to. And sometimes I think some of us are maybe, I don't want to say better at it than others, but we listen more. I think especially those of us in this space, right? Like we're teaching others about health and wellness, and we have no choice. Like I can't be the coach I need to be. I can't show up and support women if I am not supporting myself, if I am feeling burned out, if I am anxious and overwhelmed. And I've been there many times over the years, and I've had to self-assess. And this summer I definitely took more time off and really thought about everything you just said. Like, how do I want to move forward in how I do this work, and in my relationships, and what am I putting my energy into? What feels good to me? And you're right, so many women lose sight of that. Like, what actually feels good? And I also think that not a lot of women believe that they can feel good or that they're worthy of feeling good.
absolutely, absolutely. I was thinking about that as I was getting ready to come on today, and I think people don't they get discouraged because
Mm.
they've been feeling a certain way for so long and they don't believe that they are worth taking the time, putting themselves first, making an investment in themselves, whether it be a course like yours or therapy or a coach or whatever it is. And I've seen this on your Instagram. It feels really uncomfortable for women to slow down
Mhm.
even a little bit and to like allow whatever they're feeling or whatever they're thinking about to kind of come to the surface so they can examine it, so they can take a look at it, so they can work through it. So I think it's interesting because the very thing that would benefit them so much is such an uncomfortable place to be. Um, so, and I'm sure that you've learned that too, right? Like
Yeah.
when you were in the midst of the anxiety and overwhelm, you knew you had to kind of slow down or be more mindful and,
Mhm.
have more intention, but it was so uncomfortable to even start. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody likes to be uncomfortable, but I feel like the majority of people nowadays don't like to be uncomfortable. It's scary because, and there is so much more anxiety, and we have so many distractions and constant pings and dings to our nervous system. I feel that most people don't know how to self-regulate, and anything that is a little uncomfortable almost sends them into, I don't say like a spiral, but a lot of people just don't know how to sit with their feelings. And we live, even we can get into like conventional medicine and all that, but like everything needs a label. And everybody wants to know like, well, what's wrong with me and how can I fix it? And we get a lot of clients who, and yes, we do testing and we recommend supplements, but I often have to remind them like, the test is just going to give you some data. It's not going to tell us everything that needs to be addressed. And supplements are cool. Yeah, we all probably need them, but they are one piece of the puzzle. There's so much more to it. And it's the other stuff that people don't typically want to look at.
I agree. I completely agree. And for me, I have a couple holistic certifications. When I was going through my own, when I initially started my own journey, that was one of the things that I was very drawn to. Holistic wellness. What does it look like? What does it mean? How does my lifestyle impact how I feel, my mood, how I make decisions? And that there's all these different categories of our lives, right? Relationships, spirituality and faith, career, money, all of the things. And you really have to be able to look at all of them. And I think in my field, the traditional way is not, I think women are looking for something else. And I think it's typically been, and the way that I used to do it, I don't do this anymore. I have more of a conversation, and I think we're kind of speaking to two different things. I think one, like, people want a diagnosis because they think it will give them very specific and concrete answers.
Mhm.
I need, like, I have a lot of women that come in, I want a formula. Just give me a formula. Like, I just want a simple formula like I can like plug into, and I'm like, yeah, I wish that's not how it works. We're more complicated than that.
Mhm.
There's so much complexity to us, to our lives, but we want things to be easy and quick. And I think, yes, a diagnosis can be helpful in terms of these are some things that you can look at in terms of treatments or interventions, but essentially this journey is a journey of self-discovery, right? Like
Mhm.
you want to be able to start and embark on a journey of you getting to know yourself better. That's essentially what it is, I think, at the core. And I think people are scared to do that. Even though there's so much beauty in it, it can be hard. But I think it's so worth it at the end. And I think in terms of like the conventional medicine piece, in my field, it's you go to a psychiatrist and you get on a medication.
Mhm.
There's no discussion around, or maybe, I don't want to knock like all psychiatrists, but we're so quick to medicate
Yep.
without taking a look at what's really going on. What are some of these experiences that this person has been through? What does their life look like right now? Is there unresolved grief or trauma that they haven't processed?
Mhm.
Do they need help with emotion regulation skills? Could they work on some of the mindset and belief work that might
Mhm.
be underlying some of these emotions and feelings? There's so much more to it than that. I absolutely agree with you on that.
There's so many pieces to the puzzle, so to speak, when it comes to mental and physical health, which really is the same thing. I don't separate the two. And unfortunately, yes, in conventional medicine, they are often separate or separated. They're isolated, and it never made sense to me. And that's why I got into the work that I got into, because I always felt like, well, wait a minute, there has to be something driving this. Like, and it's typically not one thing. There's so many people that are like, I need the root cause. And you see that a lot even in like the holistic world. Like, you got to address the root cause. And it's usually more than one thing. Like, it
Absolutely.
could be your hormones, but it could also be the childhood trauma. It could also be the relationship that you're in. It could also be the fact that you're a people pleaser. And it's just so much. And we see this with clients, and it can be really hard. And that's just going back to that. I don't fault people who don't necessarily want to address all these different pieces, because it can be really scary and very uncertain, especially if it's, say, a relationship that you've been in for years, a marriage, whatever. That can be a really hard pill to swallow, to admit out loud that you haven't been happy, and to potentially break up or go down the divorce path, because there is so much shame around that, right? And I get it. Like, I have compassion for people who really just want the pill. And they're just like, give me the quick fix. I just want to numb out. I don't even want to address any of this stuff because it is hard.
Yep.
But, but typically I find that people find that that pill did not do what it was, what it promised.
Yeah. Or they get a little bit of relief for it for a certain amount of time, and then things start to creep up.
Mhm.
Or they develop some other issues because of the side effects of whatever
Yeah.
the medication that they're on.
Yeah.
So, and I think you talked about conventional medicine, and when I work with women, I talk about the other things that could also be driving them and encourage women to seek out someone that could do further testing, or if you're not happy with the doctor that you're seeing right now, or you feel like there's maybe some other stuff that's going on and you don't feel listened to, and you don't feel like the doctor's taking things seriously, like, you can go to a different provider. You can seek someone that has a more functional medicine approach or
Mhm.
integrative approach that is willing to do some testing or deeper work to help you kind of figure out what else might be going on. I love Dr. Ellen Vora's book
Mhm.
a lot, because I think she speaks to like some of the physical stuff that could be happening, right?
Mhm.
Blood sugar dysregulation, hormonal imbalances, all of the things that can feel like anxiety, but aren't necessarily, truer anxiety. So I often recommend that book too, or just her account.
Yeah.
Uh,
She's a great resource. And I love
yeah,
how she brings that piece into it because yes, there's often underlying imbalances, of course. But yes, as I've done this work for, over 10 years, I just see patterns and I could just see like a lot of women will come to me like, oh, I have to test my cortisol. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. I could tell just by talking to you that you've got dysregulated cortisol. And here's why.
yeah,
Could there be some gut issues? Could there be some inflammation, gut imbalances? Of course. And we can certainly look at that and address it. But I want to know why your cortisol is always up. Why is it so dysregulated? Is it because you're glued to your phone? Is it because you are on this hamster wheel? Is it because you don't get outside every day? You don't get any sunshine on your face? What does your self-care look like? So everybody wants a test and then oftentimes they'll get the test and it's like, okay, maybe this gives you more incentive to take action. So that's where I feel like testing can be helpful at times, because it's like, oh, well, now there's proof that my cortisol is dysregulated. So maybe now I'll make some changes. But I don't put a lot of weight into testing, to be honest. And I know that that probably goes against a lot of what functional health experts say because so many of them are selling testing and all that. It's quite a business, let's say that. But I always come back to what we're talking about. What is your relationship like? Do you like your job that you're going to day in and day out?
right.
You're
Yep.
spending a lot of time and energy there. Like, do you hate it? Because that's probably affecting you physically, right?
Absolutely. I think just
Yeah.
taking a, asking these types of questions helps to uncover some of the real things that are going on every single day in these women's lives. And just speaking to the diagnosis piece before, I use high functioning anxiety, but you can also just look at a woman's life. If she's high achieving, if she's ambitious, that's something that really drives her and she just kind of wants to do it all, or tends to do it all and overcommit. That's going to cause some of these things that we're talking about, the
Yeah.
dysregulated cortisol and feeling overwhelmed constantly and stressed and having sleep issues and having
Mhm.
digestive issues and not feeling connected to your spouse or partner. Sometimes it shows up as isolation. You tend to withdraw a little bit more because you don't have energy, you're tired. So there's all you really have to just take a look at all these different things and the ways in which they're manifesting in a woman's life.
Mhm. Yeah. In your work with clients, we talked a little bit about conventional medicine and, that you sought out holistic certifications. How do you bring that piece into the work you do with clients?
And I think I really just talk about really take a look at someone's whole life, and I really just talk about the importance of lifestyle,
Mhm.
and healthy habits and routines and movement and exercise and nutrition. In one of the therapies that I was trained in, it's dialectical behavioral therapy, but there's a whole piece on emotional vulnerability. That's kind of how they speak to it in the therapy. And it basically asks, are you making lifestyle choices that are contributing to emotional dysregulation? And that looks like, not making healthy nutrition choices. Are you not getting outside? Are you not exercising? Are you lacking some faith and spirituality? And if you're not kind of nourishing these aspects of your life or making these decisions or trying to incorporate healthier habits into your life, you're going to just feel more anxious. You're just going to be more stressed. You're going to feel more overwhelmed. I really just encourage people to just take healthier choices like on a daily basis. So that kind of ties into behavioral change as well. So helping someone to just be motivated to really try to change habits and behaviors, which is really hard when they are stressed and overwhelmed. I mean, I think you kind of spoke to it before. Someone can get testing, but then what are they doing with that information? Are they then, really trying to make even small changes that help them feel a little bit better? We tend to overcomplicate what's going to be helpful and what's going to make an impact. And I think getting outside and taking a walk, spending a little bit of time reading or doing some journaling in the morning and having a little bit of quiet time. There are things that you can do, not even for a long time, that I think can really just make a huge impact.
Especially if somebody is anxiety or they have that cortisol dysregulation. A lot of times, like in the morning, they're not hungry. We see this often with clients, they just have no appetite. So,
Mhm.
we're not forcing them to like eat this huge meal at the beginning, but we try to get them to that place where they are doing that self-care. They are getting outside, they're kind of resetting their circadian rhythm to start to balance that cortisol a little bit better. And then they do start to notice that their appetite comes back. So then we just start to like say, okay, like let's get a little bit of protein in the morning. And some of them don't even realize that they're not implementing some of these really foundations of health is what I call them.
Exactly.
A lot of people aren't nowadays because we are looking for all this fancy stuff and it's like things that almost seem more complicated. And it's like, and oftentimes we'll get women who they come to me and I feel like sometimes they know more than I do because they have been like Googling and, watching everything on Instagram. And then I'll ask them like, well, how much water are you drinking? And they're like, oh, I really don't drink enough. I'm like, well, let's start there. let's get back to some of the basics. And, sometimes I think people think it should be more complicated.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. I mean, I feel like sometimes I go back to the same kind of suggesting or encouraging the same thing. Like, how have you been doing with taking walks? And, I have to be careful because there is some limitations around how much I can talk. And I'm not a nutrition expert. I'm not a I'm not a gut expert. But I think just in terms of the foundations, what you're speaking to, hydration, nutrition. I think so many women, when they wake up in the morning, they're already feeling stressed and overwhelmed. They go for the cup of coffee. They don't nourish their bodies. They don't have a glass of water even before. Yeah, I like that you use the word foundations because I think that's really important. And I think
Yeah.
that's true. And I think there's a lot of all of these, I don't want to say gadgets, but you see people wearing the infrared masks and the sauna blankets and the cold plunging and cold
Mhm.
showers are great for anxiety. They
Mhm.
are. But I think it can, the more you're seeing this stuff, I think it could also fuel the overwhelm and feel like you're not doing enough things, or you
Mhm.
lose sight of these more simple foundations that you could be doing that can
Mhm.
be very impactful.
Yeah. I mean, and then because it's like you only have so many hours in a day. So it's like, well, what can you make time for every single day? And then on top of it, there's costs involved, right? So right now, I mean, a lot of people are struggling financially. And when you start to add up like the sauna blanket, the red light therapy, the this, the that, I mean, it gets to be very costly and that can cause its own stress. So that's why a lot of clients or people will even message me on Instagram like, oh, what do you think about this? Or what's your favorite whatever, walking pad or sauna or whatever. And I'm like, Sometimes I'm just like, I mean, I feel bad. Like I want to help them and give them an answer, but sometimes I'm like, is that the best use of your money and time? I mean, I don't, it's none of my business how people spend their money, but oftentimes they'll say like, oh, I can't invest in like a coaching program, but yet they'll invest in like these gadgets. And I'm like, but you need coaching because you can buy the gadgets, but guess what? After the sexiness wears off, the appeal, the shiny object, if you will, you're not going to use it. And you're still kind of you're going to be where you started.
I think the support, I think the coaching, I think the community, I think the accountability, those are really like the things that I think help people make changes, right? They don't feel alone in what they're going through. They have other people encouraging them. They have somebody that can maybe help them stay accountable to themselves or the things that they want to do or the changes that they want to make. And that might be a much better investment than some of these other things.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your health non-negotiables? What are things that you do consistently that they really help you thrive?
Writing and journaling is just something that I always have done. I, like I'm very introspective. I'm thinking about my life. I'm thinking about who I want to be. I'm thinking about the choices that I want to make. And writing and journaling has been very, very helpful. I don't think I would ever give that up. Walking and exercise is definitely something that I need. I can feel a difference when I'm not doing it. I don't tend to do, the high intensity kind of stuff because I know that can fuel some of the hormonal stuff, but more strength training. So strength training and walking. Prayer has
Mhm.
been a big thing for me. That's something that has been more recent in my life, but that's been a non-negotiable. And there's, amazing research that speaks to how it helps reduce anxiety and depression, which I
Mhm.
love. I mean, I think just like trying to have fun, like my husband and I just, I think we've forgotten how to be playful and have
Yeah.
fun. And I think that is something that I wish adults would recognize and be able to get back into. We kind of make fun of each other, we tell jokes, we are silly,
Mhm.
of course with the kids too, but that's something that is just something that we try to just integrate into our lives as well.
I love that. And my partner and I have had many conversations about that recently. How,
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah. I mean, it's not just about work. And we don't have children. So I say to him, like, we should be having all the fun in the world. Like we don't have huge responsibilities here. I mean, we have a dog who's, very demanding, but no human children.
Yeah.
And we're both, he especially is like everything is work, work, work. And I'm like, life is short, dude. Like we need to start having some fun. Speaking of journaling, you have a couple of free guides, right? Do you want to talk about them?
Yeah, I have two free guides. I have a quick start guide for journaling. I often get the question, some people just prefer, I mean, I prefer free flowing writing, but some people are like, well, I don't know what to journal about. I don't know what to write. So I've created I call it a quick start guide. So it's some prompts for different topics to help people just kind of get started in terms of journaling. And then I have a free guide. It's called From Chaos to Calm, and it's for strategies. It's really kind of foundations to help to start to reduce symptoms of high functioning anxiety. Some mindfulness, some emotional awareness.
That's
Yeah.
great. So we'll link to those in the show notes. And where can people find you to learn more about you and how to work with you?
My website, it's nadiafiorita.com. And then, of course, my Instagram handle, which is Holistic Anxiety Therapist.
Thank you so much for being here, Nadia. I
Thank you so
appreciate
much
you.
for having me.
All right. We'll see you all next week. Hey, before you go, if you're ready to get educated, empowered, and feel your best in your peri years and beyond, grab my must-have guide for women 40 plus navigating hormone changes via the link in the show notes. You'll learn my top 5 strategic diet and lifestyle changes to make ASAP to support your declining hormones and get back your energy, improve your mood and confidence. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not, nor do I act as a doctor or any other medical professional. I am not providing healthcare, medical services, or attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any physical, mental, or emotional disease or condition. The information shared is not intended to be a substitute for the professional medical advice provided by your own medical or mental health provider.